concept of shear stresses and how this can be evaluated. What is the mechanism that gives rise to production of shear forces, ultimately which give rise to shear stresses in the body. First of all, you should try to understand what is actually meant by the term shear stresses. Just try to understand what do we mean by the term shear stresses. See, if you just try to understand this term shear stresses, you should try to understand the meaning of the word shear. What is the meaning of the word shear? Any idea? What is the meaning of that word or the term shear?
So tearing.
Tearing is not shear.
Okay.
Shear means sliding of two layers relative to each other, right? Sliding of two layers relative to each other. Basically, sliding shear means simply means sliding, right? So sliding of two layers relative to each other. Now, whenever there will be a sliding motion between the two layers, so there will be some sort of a force that will give rise to this sliding process. So that force we call it as a shear force. And the stresses that will be developed at that particular section where the sliding will be taking place, we call it as shear stresses, right? So if you just define shear stresses in more easy word, we can say it is the component of a stress that acts in the plane of the section area, or we can say that acts in a section parallel to that considered area or section. Let us say we are considering this particular section on any arbitrary shaped body. So if we take a small element here like this, right? So there will be, let us say, there will be three components. One is the normal component, and one component will be like this, which will be parallel to this section, and one component is again that will be parallel to this section. So we call it as tau 1, let us call it as tau 2. Okay, so this type of forces are produced when this section will try to slide with respect to other section of a body. So due to that there will be a shear force induced, and due to that sliding action the material or the section or the body is subjected to a shear type of stresses. Now in order to understand this concept more clearly, let us try to see these type of a system. These type of a system of a bodies which is subjected to a force F. Let us say we consider these type of system of a body, right? Let us take this type of system. Say this is fixed. These supports are rigid and fixed, right? And here you put another block like this. You put another block like this. Now, okay, you put another block like this, and at the mid of this block you apply a very large magnitude force F. Let us see, you apply a very large magnitude of force F. Now if we consider, let us say this is support 1, this is support number 2. Let us say if we consider support 1 and 2 to be very rigid, and this magnitude of applied force is very large, such that this is very high, such that it causes this material to deform along these planes AB and CD. Let us say it deforms along this plane AB and CD. So how it will be? It will be somewhat like this. It will be, let us say, it will be somewhat like this. Oops, sorry. The sliding, so there will be a sliding. If this force is very large enough and these joints are rigid, please assume there will be a sliding with respect to these two sections AB and CD, right? So what it will do, it will actually tend to slide like this. The sliding will actually somewhat looks like this. Let us say this is section A, this is section AB, and this is section CD. So the body will actually tend to slide like this. This part will tend to slide like this, and it will go in this direction, right? So there will be sliding between this layer and the layer AB, and there will be a relative sliding between this layer and the layer CD, right? Which means that if there is a force F acting downwards and it is the body is sliding in this downward direction, so due to this relative sliding there will be some forces that will be acting in this upward direction also, which will try to keep the body under equilibrium condition, right? So these type of forces which are produced due to sliding, we call it as shear forces. We call these forces as the shear forces, right? So actually it will somewhat look like this. If you just draw the free body diagram of this bar, it will somewhat look like this. It will actually just try to do a 3D portion. Just if we try to do a 3D portion, see, this will be a force F acting on it. This will be a sliding in this direction. So there will be an opposite force that will be acting in this direction V on this plane CD. Say let us the element of this area, the area of this element is A, and similarly there will be another force, shear force acting V like this. So if you just try to see the simply supported beam condition, to keep this body under equilibrium, this V will be equal to F by 2 on both sides, F by 2 here and F by 2 here. So that is the reason it will try to keep under equilibrium condition. So that is the magnitude of a shear force that will be producing at this section AB and CD. Now, if you just try to see, this is the average shear force, right? This is nothing but the average shear force. Now, why I am calling this average? Because if you just try to see, this surface only, there will be small forces that will be shear forces that will be acting over each element or each particle on the body like this. Okay, so in order to represent the resultant of all these forces, we replace these forces by a equivalent force B, which is nothing but the result algebraic sum of all these forces in the acted direction. So that is the reason we call it as average shear force. Now, if you know this average shear force, there will be a shear stresses induced in this section. We denote that stresses by tau. Tau is a notion for shear stresses. So tau is a notion for shear stresses. We can say it is nothing but force upon area, shear force upon the area of the section considered. See, you have to take the only area where the forces is acting. You don't have to take the area of the whole body. You have to take the area of a cross section. That is the reason we always refer the term area of cross section. So we call it as shear force is what? V upon area of the cross section AC. So now area of the cross section depends upon what type of cross section if you have considered. If you are considering a cylindrical cross section area, its area will be pi by 4 d square. And if you consider rectangle, it will be length into breadth. And if you consider square cross sectional, it will be almost let us say b square, something like that. So V is nothing but is equal to F by 2. So it will be equal to F upon twice AC. So that is how you calculate the component of the shear stresses. So this is, we call it as tau average, average shear stress or the resultant shear stresses that will be acting on any surface having a cross sectional area AC, right? Now, see, this is the loading case that we have considered here. It is just an example of a simple or direct shear. Because why it is simple or direct shear? Because we already know the area of cross section in advance, right? So there will be, see, if the area is almost constant or we already know the area, so the distribution of shear forces will be uniform throughout that cross section area. So that is the reason we call it as simple or direct stress. But actually this assumption seems to be okay for theoretical analysis, but the same is actually not applicable on the practical analysis, because whatever the shear stresses you are going to calculate using this method, the shear stresses that will be actually inducing in your machine components will be very much larger than the value that you calculated by using this formula, because this we have assumed a uniaxial loading. I have already told you that a system is always subjected to a multi-axial loading state, or we can say multi-axial stress state. So due to all those stresses acting in different direction, the magnitude of shear forces will also be larger. But still, if you want to study on a particular cross section, this equation seems to be hold pretty good, right? So that is the concept of shear stresses. Now there will be strains also. So we are going to talk about strains in the later lectures. So there we will see the strains associated with them will be, there will be angular distortions in the body, and that angular distortions, we call that distortions as shear strain. Due to this sliding, we call that distortions as the shear strain value, right? So we will see later on. So this is the general fundamental of concept of shear stresses. So let me save it. Sorry. Okay, let me just try to save it as lecture 3. Let me change the convention. Lecture 3 P1. Lecture 3 P1 should be okay. Okay, fine. So any problem in understanding the concept of shear stresses? Any questions you guys you would like to ask here? Is it okay? Shall I proceed further? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we'll just try to see if there is a stress element. It will always be try to maintain its equilibrium conditions. So what I want to say is that the shear stresses that will be acting inside the element, they follow the force and moment equilibrium, right? Which means that shear stresses follows the force and moment equilibrium. They follows the forces and the moment equilibrium. Now what do this statement state? This statement states that, we can say, which states that, I'll just try to explain what do we mean by this term, which states that the shear stresses, I'm just writing in form of a note so that you guys don't get confused, that the shear stresses acting on any phase of the force element or the body element, acting on any phase of the body element, right? Acting on any phase of the body element is to be accompanied by, is to be accompanied by shear stresses in the opposite plane, or in the opposite phase. Shear stresses in the opposite phase. See, diagrammatically, if we just try to see, what I want to say is, if we just try to make a body element like this, okay, let us say this is our body element. Let's say this is our body element, okay. Oops, sorry. Say this is your y-axis, say this is your z-axis, and say this is your x-axis. Say this length, let us imagine this length to be delta y. Let us say this and this length will be delta y. So how much this will be? Delta x. And this length, this and this length, let us say this is to be delta z. Okay, so let us say if we consider a shear stress here on this plane, let us say this is tau of, this will be zy, because it will have a normal component in the z direction. So tau of zy. So what do this statement means? In order to keep this phase under equilibrium due to this shear stress, so on the opposite plane, on the opposite phase of the considered shear force, there should be a shear stress acting in the direction opposite to this shear stresses. So on the opposite phase, and these will later on we will just try to see the forces developed due to these the forces developed due to these shear stresses will be equal in terms of magnitude. And we just try to see, let us say we name it as tau zy. Okay, so just try to see, if we just try to see the forces under in the forces equilibrium in the y direction. So let us apply the forces equilibrium in the y direction. If we just try to see the forces equilibrium in the y direction, so it will be somewhat plus minus summation algebraic sum of Fy is equal to 0, right? So what will be the forces that will be induced on individual faces due to the shear stresses? We already know that shear stresses is force upon area, V upon A. So force will be V is what? Tau into A, tau into area, right? So let us try to see, let us try to consider this force. This is going in the positive y direction. So it will be positive tau of zy. Force is shear stress into area. So what will be the area of this face? See, how much is this? This is delta x. So this will also be delta x. This is delta y. This will also be delta y. So the area, cross section area of this face is delta y into delta x, right? So we write it as here delta x into delta y. Now we will consider the forces in y direction on this face now. This is minus tau dash zy and the area of this face. So we call it as tau z y into how much will be this area of the face? Delta x into delta y, right? Delta x into delta y is equal to 0. Similarly, let us consider the equilibrium forces in the z direction. Let us say if we consider this section, we call this as we call it as tau of yz, and there will be a opposite. To maintain the equilibrium, there will be opposite shear stresses acting tau dash yz, right? So we'll just try to see this also, equilibrium in the z direction. So this will be, see, this is going in positive z direction, so it will be positive tau of yz into the area. Area of this face will be how much? Del x into del z. See, this is del x and this is del z. So this and these are equal because we assume it to be cube. So in cube every side is equal. So dx del x into del z. So we write it as del x into del z minus, this is going in negative z direction. So this will be tau dash yz into again del x into del z is equal to 0. Any problem in this up till now? Any confusion in this?
Repeat what you told earlier, sir. This diagram explanation.
Sorry. Can you please say it again? What you want to ask?
Can you please repeat the explanation for the diagram you gave?
Okay. See, what I wanted to say is, in order to maintain this body element in equilibrium condition, if there is one shear stresses acting on one face of element, in order to maintain the equilibrium, there should be another opposite shear. There should be another shear stresses that will be acting in the opposite phase and also in the direction opposite to the opposite to this shear force. So that way the equilibrium will be maintained. So now how you can maintain the equilibrium? You just try to calculate the shear forces that will be produced on each phase due to these shear forces. So what we have assumed here is, for every body element, let us say this side will be delta x, this side is delta y. See, this is y, so this will be delta y, and this side from this it is delta z. So what is, we call it as, see, shear force will be what? V is tau into area, or we can say cross sectional area. So here on the y side, we are assuming on the y side, we just wanted to see whether the body is under equilibrium or not. So we will be using the equilibrium conditions, right? So in equilibrium conditions, we will be using this equilibrium equation, summation of Fy is equal to 0. So now what will be the forces? See, let us try to see this. Tau zy, it is going in the positive y direction. So what will be the forces that, what will be the forces associated due to this shear stresses? It will be tau of zy into area of cross section of this face. So what will be the area of cross section of this face? What will be the area of this face? This is how much? This is delta y, right?
Yes, sir.
And this is how much?
Delta
This
X.
is delta x. So the area of phase, this phase will be delta x into delta y, right? Now minus, since this is, we already assume in the direction opposite to the shear force, it is going in minus y direction, so it will be tau dash zy into, again I do not need to explain this, area of cross section is equal to 0. So if you just try to see, this will, if you take out common and if you transfer it to right hand side is already 0, so you see tau of zy is equal to tau dash zy in terms of magnitude, but it will be in opposite in direction. So in order to maintain our equilibrium, we need to apply a equal magnitude of shear forces on the opposite phase in a direction opposite to this shear force. So we call this shear force as complementary shear stresses. We call this as complementary shear stresses. So whenever you come across this term complementary normal stresses and complementary shear stresses, so that is what the word complementary here means. In order to maintain the body in equilibrium conditions, we need to apply equal and opposite stresses, right? So we call it as complementary shear stresses. Now the same will be applicable here also. Tau of yz is equal to tau dash yz. Now all these forces will be equal in magnitude. Tau dash zy, it can be equal to 1. So this property we call it as complementary shear stresses. Now the same can be applicable for moment also. So what you can try, you guys can try for moment also. You try to take moment across x-axis and just try to see these two forces will come into play with respect to x-axis, and with respect to z-axis these two forces will come into play, and you will just try to see this tau zy will be equal to this and this shear stresses will be equal to this in terms of magnitude, right? So in this way, these complementary shear stresses maintains the equilibrium of a body element in this way. So that is the reason, to maintain the equilibrium we call it as complementary shear stresses. Please, this question has been asked so many times in the competitive exam. What is complementary shear stresses? So please remember this. All right. So I'm just trying to save this. So that is the concept of, where is lecture 3T1, lecture 3T2. So that is what we call it as the complementary shear stress components, right? Any problem in understanding the equilibrium conditions? Please ask me if you have any doubts up till now. Is it okay?
Okay, sir.
See, yeah. See, just try to see what will be the case of complementary normal stress. Let us say, just try to see. See, why I am telling you these type of things, why I am teaching in this way, I am already assuming you guys have a basic knowledge of engineering mechanics. If you don't have, please let me know. I will change my teaching methodology. I don't mind. If you guys find it difficult to understand, please let me know. I will explain it in a more easier fashion. But this is one of the most simplistic way that will be useful for everyone. See, let us say this is our cylindrical bar. It is subjected to a pressure here. It is subjected to a force P here. Now to maintain the equilibrium, there will be equal and opposite stresses acting on it. So this P dash, which will be equal and opposite in, which will be equal in magnitude but opposite in direction, we call it as complementary normal stresses. So that is what the meaning of complementary stresses means. Complementary stresses are those stresses that are applied in a direction opposite to the previously acted stresses and having equal magnitude, such that they maintain the equilibrium condition of the body. So that is all about the concept of, please unmute, that is about the concept of complementary shear stresses. So that is how we maintain the equilibrium of shear stresses in a body element. Okay. So this is about the concept of complementary shear stresses. Normally the word complementary is often referred with shear stresses alone. Very few cases we use with the term normal stresses, right? So that is what I wanted to explain in today's lecture. So let us see. Now let us going to take some few practice problems based on estimating out the internal loading at any section of a body. So I am assuming you guys have already know the method of calculating the linearly distributed forces. Okay, so let us take a problem number 1. Since this is your tube section, I will be taking problems also along with your theoretical section. So let us take problem number 1. So the problem number 1 is determine the resultant internal loading. The resultant internal loading acting on the cross section of a beam acting on a cross section of a beam at point C of a cantilever beam. We take an example of a very basic example of a cantilever beam at point C as shown in figure. Okay, at point C. Now, what is the figure? The figure actually looks like this. The figure actually looks like this. Okay, so this is your cantilever beam. This is your cantilever beam. This is your beam, and on this beam there is a cylindrical uniformly varying load applied to it from this point to this point like this. From this point to this point acting like this. All right, acting like this. So let us say we have some point C here and we want to determine what are the internal loadings that will be acting at the point C. So the point C from, let us say this is point A and this is point B, this point B. This is AC is how much? This is 3 meters, and from C to B we have got 6 meters. See, this is not uniformly distributed load, this is uniformly varying load, which means that the load will be divided in equal proportions at each and every section in terms of magnitude. So we have to first find out what will be the magnitude of uniformly varying load that will be acting at section C to B. So we will take a ratio in order to estimate out the forces that will be acting due to this uniformly varying triangular load in the section BC. So in order to simplify, what we can do, either we can take, let us say, solution of this. If we want to solve out for internal loading, you can do these problems in two ways. Either you can take section A and C, or you can take section B and C. See, if you take section A and C, you might have to find out two reaction forces. One is this and one is this. So if you take section BC, you just try to see, you don't have to find any reaction forces. So let us, for the sake of easiness, let us take this section BC. Okay, so first of all, we just try to find out what will be the magnitude of the uniformly varying load that will be acting from B to C. Okay, so let us try to find out. So we will take this intensity of a load can be found by taking appropriate proportions. So what will be the proportion of loading? Let us say the load proportion, the magnitude of load that will be acting on BC is W Newton per meter. Intensity of load acting at BC. So what will be the proportion in this? It will be W by 6, right? Now, if we consider the total proportion of this uniformly varying load, what will be the total proportion of this? This will be equal to, for this from A to B, it will be 270 over 9. This is 6 plus 3, 9, right? So these two proportions we assume to be equal. From here we can find out the magnitude of W, which is the intensity of a loading acting at BC due to this uniformly varying load. So if we just try to solve it, it will be 270 by 9 into 6. It will be how much? 3 3 ja 9, 3 2 ja 6, 390. So it will be roughly approximately 180 Newton meter, right? So we have now W is equal to, from this to this, we have got 180 Newton per meter load. Let us try to write it as here, 180 Newton per meter load from B to C. Okay, so now let us try to consider this section BC. So how it will look like? In order to find the internal loading, let us take this section BC. So it will somewhat look like this. This is C, this is B, and we have a triangular load acting like this. All right, we have a triangular load of 180 Newton per meter acting like this. 180 Newton per meter. Now, what will be the, see, now this uniformly varying load can be converted into a single load. So how do we convert it? What will be the magnitude of load? So we will take the area of this rectangle in order to convert this into a unit load. So what will be that unit load? If you already know this, it will be 1 by 2 base into height. That is the area of a triangle formula. So what is the base here? Base here is 6 meter, right? Base here is 6 meter. And what will be the height? So height is 180. So we'll just put 1 by 2 into 6 into 180. So this is a magnitude of a load that will be acting in terms of a single concentrated force, right? And that will be acting at the centroid of this triangle, which is 1/3 of this total distance, if you remember from the basics of engineering mechanics. So this will be 3, it will be roughly 540 newtons. All right, so it will be roughly 540 newtons. Since this is a free end, there will be no reaction forces acting at point number P. Now this 540 will be acting at what distance? Distance will be what? Distance will be 1 by 3 into 6 from point C, that is 2 meter. So this 540 Newton concentrated load will be acting at a distance of 2 meter from point C. So let us try to see how do the free body diagram look like. Wait. Let us try to make it here. Okay. I want to finish this problem within one page. So let us say the 540 load is acting like this. This is point number C and this is point number B. Now we have to find out at section C, we have to find out the internal loadings. I have already told you, since this is a coplanar loading, at every point in case of this type of coplanar loading which is acting on one plane, there will be a normal force acting like this. You can assume any direction. Depending upon plus and minus sign, you can revert the direction later on after the calculation. Let us say your shear force will be acting like this and your moment is actually acting like this M. So we can say this as MB, which is the bend, MC, which is the bending moment. So this is 540 Newton. This is at a distance of 2 meter and this is at a distance of 4 meter, right? So 540 Newton now. So we'll just try to use the equilibrium conditions in order to find out these internal forces for MC, VC and NC, which is a normal force. So let us try to use first equilibrium condition, Fx is equal to 0. See, there is no load in x-axis except NC. So NC minus NC is equal to 0. So NC is nothing but 0 Newton. There is no NC will be acting on it. So what about force in the y direction? We have got plus minus. Summation of Fy is equal to 0. So positive y we are going this Vc. The 540 Newton we are going downward. So minus 540 is equal to 0. So shear forces is what? Shear forces will be 540 Newton. Now we want to find out the magnitude of this MC. So what we will do, we will just try to take out the moment at about point C of all the forces that will be acting in the section BC. So this MC is actually trying to put the body in clockwise direction. So what we will do, we'll just try to take this minus MC. See, I already told you, please take anti-clockwise moment to be positive and take clockwise moments to be negative. So this is at about point C. This MC will tend to rotate this section in the clockwise direction, so we are taking it negative. Similarly, this force 540 Newton about point C will also tend to rotate the body in clockwise direction, so we are taking in negative direction only. So minus MC minus 540 into the perpendicular distance. So perpendicular distance is 2 meter. So 540 into 2 is equal to 0. So what will be your MC? So MC will come out to be minus 1080 Newton. Now, see, it is coming out in terms of negative value, which means that the direction that we have assumed, the moment actually is acting in this direction. Yeah. Any questions?
No, I was just saying direction is reversed as we assume.
Yes. Absolutely. Negative sign means whatever direction we have assumed, we just have to reverse it. All right. So MC will be acting like this. So that is MC will be equal to, you can write it down as 1080 newtons, 1080 Newton in anti-clockwise sense. You can write it in anti-clockwise sense. So now similarly on the other format of solving this problem, you can consider this section AC. You have to find out these two reactions then. Okay. So in that case also just try to just try to sort it out, solve it for section AC later on, and just try to compare all these values whether they are the same or not. So that is the value of NC, VC and MC that is coming out for these type of problems. Okay. So I hope you guys got it. Let me just try to save it. Today I will upload all these pictures. So you guys can consult these pictures if you want for your help. P3. Okay. So this is first numerical problem that we wanted to take. Let us quickly take, I think we have 13 minutes left also. Let us take one more problem. Okay, where is that problem now? Okay, so yeah. Guys, please